All right. Thank you, Leslie, for having me here to speak tonight. I'm just going to go ahead and start this off with I am super nervous. I have never spoke before or shared my story. I struggle with, vulnerability and self-worth and all the things. So I feel like when you asked me to speak, I thought, it's not all about me. It's about giving back to the newcomer and sharing my experience, strength, and hope. So started off with that. So let's see where to start. My name is Cari. I am an addict. My clean date is November 26, 2017. Um, I come from the illusion of the perfect family. I was born and raised here in Asheville, North Carolina. My parents were married the majority of my life, very active in my childhood. And I know now what I did not know then, that when I say it was the illusion of the perfect family, my mom did a really great job of keeping the family perfect. The word perfection and perfect has been instilled um, in me at a very young age. I grew up in a salon. She was a hairstylist. The outsides always had to be put together, polished, perfect. And um, we didn't talk about our feelings. We didn't cry. Um, we just, we didn't really, it's like we didn't have problems because we never talked about our problems. Um, so I would say that I had a really great childhood. Um, Come eighth grade was when my world got flipped upside down. So my parents separated when I was on my eighth grade trip. I was gone. I wasn't home. So I harbored a lot of if I wouldn't have gone on the trip, maybe I could have kept my parents together. I was blindsided from day one from their divorce. And at that moment, I decided to go and live with my dad. My dad was the one who picked me up from the eighth grade trip, and he had been drinking. And that's when he shared with me, his version and his side of the story. And I decided to go and live with him. So I was forced to almost grow up at a really young age, at such a pivotal point in my childhood, going into your freshman year of high school. I'm living with my dad, and I kind of stepped into my mother's role. My dad, I later found out is an addict. He's an alcoholic. But it was something that he had hidden from me my whole childhood. And as we all know, addiction is a progressive disease, and it had progressed to where um, life had just become completely unmanageable in his addiction, and that's when they separated. So I tried to hold it all together for him. I cooked, I cleaned, I made sure his laundry was done. I did all the things that mom did for him because he had fallen completely on his face. So I lived a lot in the victim role. I lived a lot in the caretaker role. Um, but looking back now, I can see that in high school, um, I was an outgoing person, but I was never one that could have genuine friendships and relationships and connection. I always felt um, like my mind was at home and worrying about my dad. And I never really fit in high school. And so um, I remember one weekend, my freshman year, wanting to have a party at my dad's house. I wanted to have some people over because I thought that would be really cool if we all came to my house for the weekend. So my dad's response to that was absolutely, we can have a party here as long as you bring me some beer. And so we started to party together. It was that was whenever I found something outside of myself that gave me a feeling of belonging. People wanted to come to my house on the weekend, and that was because they could party there. Um, so, um, as soon as I graduated from high school, I ran from Asheville. I'm a runner. I like to not face feelings, and I needed to get away from the uncomfortable of being at home. All the while, my dad's, disease was progressing, but I didn't want to. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to get away, so I went to Raleigh. I stayed there for a couple of years to get my 2 year degree. I never managed to get my 2 year degree. I continued to party, and it was really more about just getting away from home. So, long story short, I ended up back in Asheville where I decided to go to cosmetology school. My mom was a hairdresser, my grandmother was a hairdresser. So, I kind of fell into their footsteps and started doing hair. Um, that was where I continued to use, or I continued to drink on the weekends and do some, going out to the bars, I think was like a big part of the beginning. And um, I didn't think that I ever had a problem. I continued to grow my business. I grew my clientele. I My life to me felt like it was manageable. Um, and it was just extracurricular stuff. So as time went on, I got pregnant with my son. His father and I went to high school together, and had run back into each other whenever I moved back home. And him and I started to party together pretty hard on the weekends. And that's when I found out I was pregnant. So I did manage to stay clean all through my pregnancy. But then after I had my son, I was given prescription drugs with my C section, and that sent me back off to the races again. So, um, I I remember sitting there when Lucas was about 2 years old thinking, "I can't do this anymore. I have a child. I need to get myself together enough to be a mom, so I'm going to look into something for him." Um, Looking back now, all the times that I've relapsed and all the times that I've been in rehabs is because I was doing it for somebody else. I was doing it for my son. I was doing it for my mom. I did it for my dad. Um, I did go to um, 3 rehab facilities prior to coming to Pavilion. And each time my son would go with my mom, I always had my mom to enable me, if you will. She was always there to pick up the pieces and hold it together and not let me fall on my face too hard and take my child and rescue everything. And so I never really had what I felt like was real consequences. I always had people that were there to hold my business together, take care of my child. And so fast forward, um, my dad and I's relationship had become very toxic. We used together, and a lot of us know in active addiction, it's about what can you get for me or what can I get for you, not genuine, real relationships. And that's what mine and my dad's relationship had turned into. It was just trying to keep each other from getting sick, pretty much. And um, my dad and I actually got in a really big fight one evening. I said some really ugly, hurtful things to him. And he drove to Wilmington that night, very upset, and he died um, of a drug overdose. And that was he died on April the 12th, and he had left me some life insurance money. And Um, I remember my mom drawing for straws. She's like, we need to find the perfect rehab for her, somewhere that she can go and get away. And she had heard about Pavilion, and I used his life insurance money to go. I went because my dad died. I went to try to make mom happy. I went into Pavilion absolutely kicking and screaming for someone else. Um, and looking back at it now, I wasn't done. Um, I had lost my child. My mom had taken him from me um, full time. I um, I remember, like, when we were just reading that reading, the word willingness kept sticking out to me. And that was something, that's a spiritual principle that I really hold near and dear to my heart now, because willingness was never anything that I had. Um, I wasn't willing to do what it takes to get clean and stay clean and sober. So I went to Pavilion, and man, what an amazing place. I thought, I've been to so many rehabs, I already know what they're gonna say. I already know what they're gonna do there. But what an experience, the food and the fellowship. I made friends at Pavilion that I still talk to this day. Um, the children's program is probably um the biggest thing that I got out of Pavilion, like, for my son, for him to get to go through the children's program and to learn about addiction and what it is, and that it's not his fault. And they said it in a way that was very relatable for a child. Um, that, looking back now, was probably the biggest take from Pavilion, because now I can talk to him and I can relate to him in ways that he understands, um, as far as A in my brain was the way that they described it in the children's program. So I got out of Pavilion. I did not stay connected. I did not. I actually, as when I was there, I fell in love with the place and I didn't want to leave. I was scared to leave Pavilion. I ended up going to the extended care, and I stayed there and, completed my time there in the extended care before it was time to be released into the real world. And I stayed clean for maybe 90 days after I left Pavilion. Um, that last relapse, they say to us that each relapse gets worse. And I'm one of those people that, like, I have to, like, touch the iron to see if it's hot. Somebody can tell me that all day long, but until I experience it myself, then so I say that I had to, like, go back out and do some more research. I had to go touch the iron. I had to try to rewrite the AA literature. I thought that I could go back to managing my drug use. I would switch to something different that was not my drug of choice, and I could manage it. And needless to say, things got really bad really fast. That last year before I ended back up in treatment was complete. I lost everything, homeless, that state of degradation, just beaten, bruised, didn't have nobody wanted anything to do with me anymore. My child was gone. Most of all, I was, when you get to that stage of, like, using against your own will, it's like I knew that I had messed up, and I knew that I got a taste of what it was like to be clean and sober, but I was back in the grips and I didn't know how to get out. Um, and so it was about a year before there was a family intervention. They swooped in on Thanksgiving. Everybody was in town. And of course, I was kicking and screaming and didn't want to go along with it. But I ended up back in a treatment facility out in Memphis, um, for a 6-month program where I finally surrendered to the fact that I had a problem and everybody else was not my problem, that I was the problem, and that I needed to have some willingness to do something different. And I think what's different this time is that I'm doing it for me. I'm not doing it for anyone else, trying to do it for somebody else and then failing at it would leave me with all this shame and feeling like I couldn't stay clean. Why can't I stay clean for my child? Why can't I stay clean for my mom or my dad or my child? Or, and then I felt, defeated and like such a failure because I couldn't do it for somebody else. But so now I have 3.5 years clean and sober. Um, I stayed in treatment for 6 months. I left the treatment facility and went to a women's halfway house in Hickory, North Carolina, which is about an hour from here. And that's where I started to slowly work myself back into a relationship with my son and my family and responsibility. And I took the time to work on me for me, because if I can't take care of myself, what is it? Put the oxygen mask on yourself first. If you can't take care of yourself, you absolutely can't show up for anybody else. And man, today I have my son back. He has a half sister that is a huge part of our lives. I get to be a mom today. Um, I was talking to my sponsor prior to this, and I was thinking about the first time I was in treatment, and there was a lady that was on the panel there, and she got up and she spoke, and I thought, wow, that is so cool that she is sharing her story like that and being so vulnerable up there. And I want to do that, but I don't think I'll ever be able to do that. I just I did not see where I am right now. And it's such an honor to get to be here today and get to share my story. Um, and it's really cool to like know that I've been where all of you have been, there in the women's lounge and in the EC house. And today I have some material things. I'm a work in progress. It's not easy, and recovery doesn't happen overnight. And it is absolutely not butterflies and rainbows every day. Life shows up. Life is life on life's terms. I'm a part of I'm a 12-step fellowship. I have service commitments. I have a key that they gave me where I open the door and they trust me to show up and unlock the door with the code to the alarm. I have responsibilities today that I have integrity. I like to keep my promises to other people as well as to myself. And that is something that is a huge gift of recovery. Now that I have this time with my son and my children, they they point out things in the past of that maybe I necessarily didn't remember too well, but it was an impact that it made on them. And I realize now how much I drug them through the mud in my active addiction. And I did not. I thought that as long as their hair's brushed and their teeth are brushed and they are to school, whether it be late or on time, whatever, they're there, that's being a parent. And today I'm getting to actually show up for them in ways that is an actual um an actual parent. My sponsor tells me all the time, Cari, you are living recovery. And it is surreal. I never could put together more than 90 days ever. And it's great to have a network of women that genuinely love and support me, and they don't want anything from me. They just want to take care, we just take care of each other. We show up for each other. We encourage each other. Um, what else? Um, I think an important thing that I wasn't willing to do was to take simple suggestions from people gotten, who have sobriety under their belt. I thought that I could work things my way and I could do work 12 steps, like leave the second step out, but I'll do the third step, or, just kind of work my own program. And I feel like, I've learned through trial and error, lots and lots of pain and hurt and trial and error, that, um, taking simple suggestions from people who know what they're talking about, who can live life on life's terms, um, is is what has gotten me to where I am today. The willingness to take suggestions, the willingness to say, I don't know what the hell I'm doing a lot of times, and the willingness to show up for myself and show up for my family, um, and be okay that, um, everything's not perfect. Like, things don't, nothing is perfect. I'm working on that because it's been such um a thing in my childhood to like always have to be perfect. And so, um, there's so many gifts to recovery. Um, yeah, it's just a beautiful thing. And there is hope for people out there who are struggling. And um, I, I have to remember that I have today, as long as I can go to bed and put my head on the pillow tonight without picking up a drug or a drink, I get to do life. Before, the drugs and the drinks controlled me. And today I get to do life. And it's as long as I stay clean.